I believe he's going to go up and try to challenge for the light heavyweight belt.
Yep.
But I think he's a G, and it's just like, you know what? You want some of this again, kid? You can have it. You want some? Come get it. Run up on me.
Run up on me. What's up, guys? LauraSanko, Dean Thomas here with you, getting ready to preview UFC 287. It's going to be a fantastic card. Heading down to Miami. There's going to be some sunshine. There's going to be some bright colors. Miami always brings out the best in people, I feel like. Dean, have you ever hung out in Miami?
Actually, it might bring out the worst in people. Have you heard about all the stuff that's going on down in spring break?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Well, this is an awesome card. I'm dying to talk through this main event with you. Obviously, it's a rematch between Israel Adesanya and now champion Alex Pereira. Just 5 months after Alex beat Izzy for the title, a quick turnaround for both of them, and I think that really speaks to the mentality of Izzy in particular, but really both men. I guess just before we get started, well, you know what? Let me run through the tail of the tape first, Dean. Hold on one second. All right. So in terms of the tail of the tape, obviously massive difference in UFC experience. Well, experience overall, really. You got Alex Pereira 7-1 overall, Izzy 23-2 overall. And in as terms of their UFC records, you've got Alex Pereira 4-0 and Israel Adesanya 12-2. So massive discrepancy in terms of MMA experience. 1 inch reach advantage for Izzy at 80 inches, roughly the same in age. Alex is actually just a couple of years older, but where I think the interesting stats pop up is when you start to look at some of the specifics. So both of these guys are very accurate strikers. Pereira 59.6% accuracy, which is pretty darn high. Pretty good defense as well. High output from Alex Pereira. I think it's funny that they have Pereira's takedown defense listed as 100%. Or takedown accuracy, I should say, listed as 100% because he got 1 of 1. And then Israel Adesanya's is only 14.3%, but obviously we're talking about a very different data set there. 1 of 1 for Alex. I don't know that we can really call that statistically significant, but both of them very good takedown defense. I think it gets interesting as well when you look at the target breakdown. So in terms of where they target their shots, Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya both roughly have half of their shots headed toward the head. Where it gets interesting is how much Izzy kicks. And in my head, I knew Izzy kicks a lot, but he kicks significantly more than Alex Pereira. And I think that might be an interesting factor in the fight. So wanted to point that out. Obviously not a ton of relevant grappling stats for either of these guys, but I can finally let you talk now, Dean. What was your biggest, I guess, takeaway from their last fight?
I mean, the biggest takeaway really for me from their last fight was, and this is going to sound bad, but it's the God honest truth, is how bad they looked on the ground. Like you would, honestly, that's kind of the biggest takeaway is that I'm looking at these guys and go, okay, they're the best in the world at what they do, and they're the best in that division right now, but they look really bad on the ground. And if one person could be able to capitalize on that against the other person, then they should have a significant advantage over the other person, especially Israel Adesanya, because I'm not sure Alex Pereira can make up for such lost time in such a short amount of time. So I'm not even sure Izzy can do it, but I think he has a better chance than Alex in order to capitalize on the ground. I
would agree. I think that last fight taught us a lot about their ability to grapple and their, I guess, inclination to grapple. And
inability to grapple.
What's that?
Inability to grapple.
I'm the nice one. We'll be good cop, bad cop this time. But it definitely, I mean, it revealed, I think, a side to both of their games that we just hadn't been exposed to yet. And for me, of the two of them, Alex Pereira looked way greener than Israel Adesanya. I'm not saying Israel Adesanya is a world beater on the ground yet, but there was a massive discrepancy, at least in terms of what I saw. In particular, there was an exchange where I think they clinched up briefly, and when Alex went to, I mean, he literally did a very green thing. He kind of stepped around and looked like he was going to try to do a whizzer kick, but it was just completely in the wrong position. I mean, there was no way that what he did with his feet was a good idea in anyone's book. And to me, that kind of set off a little bit of an alarm bell, like, oh, this is a significant hole in his game. And maybe that's not, you know, rocket science, right? But seeing it play out that way, Izzy's team is looking at the same stuff.
I mean, of course, they have to be looking at it. I mean, they both look pretty bad. I mean, obviously, Izzy showed a little bit more skill in those different areas, but
I mean,
but
he did
just
hold
their
them
body.
down for 4 minutes, Dean. I will say
Yeah,
that.
but just both of their body mechanics didn't move like real grapplers. I mean, when you see a grappler move, like you can tell that they grapple, like they're a little bit more fluid and kind of smooth, and they know how to dance on the floor. And just both of them looked really stiff and mechanical, and it didn't sit well with me. And I was kind of like, wow, this is unbelievable, and no one is biting at the chops like Robert Whitaker right now.
For sure. I will say though that after because it was round 3 when Izzy took Alex down. Actually, he reversed a takedown, so it's not like he even was looking for one. But he landed on top and he did control him for, I mean, almost 4 minutes. And my biggest takeaway from that was not only that he kept him controlled for 4 minutes, but the round after that, Alex, you could see a significant drop in his gas tank. Significant drop in his gas tank. So I'm interested to know. I mean, I guess I have coming into this fight is I do think they're going to grapple more. And I do think Izzy will be the one to probably initiate it and probably get the better of it. But I'm interested to know who it will wear out more, because I'd like to think it would be Alex, or I shouldn't say I'd like to. I would think it would be Alex. But, as you know, when that base is not your base, it's not your main gas tank. And it's not Izzy's or Alex's. But I guess the person who initiates maybe has a better chance of not getting gassed.
Well, I would have to say, in Alex's defense, the reason why maybe he was gassed from the grappling in the first fight is he probably didn't prepare for that. Yeah. He probably didn't expect Izzy to be on top of him for 4 minutes. No, you'd have to think that, okay, that had to be a big portion of the training now. And probably the two biggest things that he has to do now is get started faster and prepare for some grappling moments. And I don't think he did that in the first fight at all. Like in the first fight, he didn't really turn it on until the 5th round.
Yeah.
And he didn't expect any, I'm sure he probably didn't expect any grappling enough. So I'm sure that his coaches and Glover, Teixeira, those guys back in Connecticut were like, all right, man, listen, he's going to try to take you down for sure. I mean, you look terrible in the last night. He's going to try to take you down for sure. So I expect him to do his homework this time.
Yeah, and he's got Glover Teixeira, as you say. I mean, what a great person to have in your camp, guiding you in terms of grappling and wrestling and mixing that into your striking. Couldn't think of a better coach to have in your corner there. Another element that really stuck out to me, I guess, was Izzy's use of leg kicks. Now, it did get him in trouble at one point because Alex checked one of his kicks, and that actually was kind of the beginning of the end in that 5th round. It didn't happen immediately before he got caught, but in my mind, it led to him being backed up against the fence, and it led to him not being able to move laterally as well as he's used to doing. Do you think it's smart for Izzy to continue to use that tool, or do we put that one away?
No, well, here's the thing is, his leg kicks won't be as effective as they are on most guys. Like when you look at the way Izzy leg kicked Paulo Costa, like those were damaging leg kicks and it affected Costa because Costa stands like a boxer.
Yeah.
But Alex Pereira is going to be prepared for the leg kicks and he will be prepared to check them. I think Izzy needs to just use the leg kicks in order to create angles and let his hands do his work because he's faster. Yes. His hands are faster, his feet are faster, so he needs to use those kicks only to set up his hands and only to create angles so he can punch in a spot where he ain't going to get countered. Because I think that was the problem, is that he was fighting tentatively. He was fighting backwards, throwing leg kicks, and it was working for 4.5 rounds until it didn't work. But then we know that there's some chink in the armor. Put a little pressure on him, and you may have some success. So I think that he is going to use his leg kicks smarter, but he should use them to set up his hands more.
Yeah, and it was interesting because when I looked at the stats, Alex even kicked. So the first round, they basically were both just measuring each other, kind of figuring out the timing and things like that. And in round 1, Pereira kicked 19 times. And then from there, it just fell off. It went 19 to 5 to 3 to 6 to 2. So he kicked less and less and less as the fight went on. And I don't know if that's a result of Izzy's, offense on the legs being effective, but I thought it was an interesting trend to see how much less he was kicking and really relying on his hands in those later rounds.
Well, let me pull the curtain back a little bit, and I haven't really spoken on this much, so you are getting the goods here. So as you know, I sit cage side of the fights. And I was cage side of that fight. And as soon as the fight was over, everybody was still in shock, still in awe. And Glover Teixeira ran over to me and was like, I don't know what he was doing out there fighting. I don't know why he was fighting so tentatively. And he finally turned it on in the fifth round. I don't know why he was fighting as slow as he was, which leads me to believe that they expected him in that fight to fight faster,
Yeah.
which gives me the impression that he's going to fight faster in this fight than he did in the first fight.
That he's got
So
another
I believe,
yeah.
Right. So so I believe that they're going to try to pick up where they left off in that last fight and go, okay, we know that we can hurt this guy. You know that you can knock him out. Just go out there and do it. Don't wait like you did the first time.
I like these rematches when they happen so quickly, kind of like Moreno Figueiredo did between, was it 1 and 2 or 2 and 3? I can't remember, but it's almost becomes a continuation of the previous fight. Like you say, where it left off and the trends that we were seeing at the end of that fight and how they play into this one, I think are really interesting to think about. You know, one of the, I guess, meta themes of this fight was just obviously Pereira's power, Pereira's physicality, his size, and his ability to pressure Izzy. You know, he wasn't throwing nearly as much. He wasn't really throwing nearly as sophisticated of combinations as Izzy was, but I guess it's just his density, his size, and his power. He was kind of the one, you know, manipulating and dictating where the fight was taking place. He was pressuring Izzy. How do you, when you know you're outgunned, but you're faster and maybe you pick better angles, how do you get the respect of someone that is just a more powerful puncher than you are?
Well, you gotta, like, as we saw, Izzy was able to hurt him.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that Izzy isn't able to hurt him because I think that he respects the power so much that he's not willing to follow up after he has him hurt. And that's the way you get your respect. Like, you can hurt them, but you got to follow up and let them know that once I get you drunk, I'm going to keep you drunk. So I think that was the biggest issue that Izzy had, is that when he hit him, he was so concerned about getting countered that he would back off and then reset. He's got to have a little bit more confidence in his ability to defend himself in them spots and go, all right, once I hit you, I'm going to turn this into a combination. I'm going to hit you 3 times as opposed to just once.
I love the psychological component to this because there's so many layers, and you just brought up one there because I think we focus a lot on the narrative of, like, you know, how does Izzy feel coming into this one, having been knocked out by Alex in an MMA setting? And I guess you could sort of play devil's advocate to that. And, you know, to your point, if that round 1 had been, I don't know, 10 seconds longer, there's a strong chance that Izzy would still be champion, right? And there's also the idea, although I disagree with it, that he wasn't face planted right at the end of the fight. I do think it was a good stoppage, but I think it's a little bit different when you get knocked out in more of a TKO setting than just completely waking up, you know, 3 hours later in the hospital, not understanding what happened. He popped right up. So I guess my question is, do you think either Alex getting rocked in the first round, like heavily rocked in the first round, or Izzy, you know, obviously losing the way that he did, are either of those a bigger factor for these guys coming in?
I think for Alex, he has to respect that. He has to acknowledge that. Like, sometimes we don't acknowledge it, you know, and that's one of the worst things with the old saying, you either win or you learn, right? Because even when you win, there's so much to learn. And if I'm Alex, I'm going back and looking at the tape and going, what did I get hit with? Like, I got hit with something that I probably shouldn't have gotten hit with. And I think the burden really should be on Alex to make sure that doesn't happen again, because he knows he could hurt Izzy. But if he also knows that he can be hurt too, which I don't think he knew before. So he has to go back and do his homework and say, I got to be a little bit more careful, but I got to be able to put some calculated pressure on this man who is faster than me, who's faster, who's longer, who probably has more tricks and is a little bit more diverse, but I got to be able to put some calculated pressure on him. He's got to go back, look at himself in the mirror, and answer those questions on how he can get in there without getting hit.
Yeah, you make some great points there. And I would add to that, you know, he's got to have the thought in his head, yeah, I've beat this guy. But it's like, if you look at the fights, the rounds, he has lost massively in terms of if these had ended up being decisions, which I realize that's kind of a, you know, we're playing in pretend land here. But point being, Izzy was up 3-1 going into that 5th round. And if you look at their kickboxing matches, even the match where Izzy got knocked out, he was in the fight. He was having great moments in the fight. And their first kickboxing match, you watch that. I think Izzy won. And when you watch Alex get his hand raised, I think Alex thought Izzy won as well. So there's definitely the dynamic. It's not like Alex has been dominating every single moment of these fights. In fact, I would say to some extent it's been the other way, but that power just shines through whenever it needs to.
And I don't want to put too much into his power is more as much as I do his willpower to win, because that's really what it is. I mean, when you go into these fights knowing that the other guy is probably a little bit better than you, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. He's winning the majority of the rounds because he's a little bit better, but but the reality is that Alex has the determination and the willpower to stay in there and go, all I need is one. All I need is one. All I need is one. I mean, that can give you that's empowering to know that. But I think for Alex, he has to get started faster. I mean, that's just the reality of it, because when he is winning, it's when he's active. It's when his level of activity is higher. But here's where it gets tricky, is that Israel is better sometimes when guys are a little bit more wild.
Yeah,
so that's why Alex, right. So that's why Alex has to do a really good job of calculating his offensive attack, because if he gets too wild, it's going to play right into Izzy's hands. But if he's not wild enough, he's going to be a sitting duck.
So you're expecting a faster start from Alex, some grappling from Izzy. When do you think we'll see the grappling from Izzy? You think he'll just bring it out right away? Or,
I mean, see, the problem with guys like Izzy, right, is that when they're training, they're focusing on their strengths. But now's the time where he's going to need some of his weaknesses to be his strengths. And if he hasn't been working that his entire career, it's too late now. Sometimes it can be too late. And you really need a very consolidated type of skill set brought in, like right now. Yeah, I'm sure he's working on his wrestling, but to me, it wasn't his wrestling that failed him. To me, it was his finishing ability on the ground that failed him. And it may be too late for him to develop that now. Islam Makhachev, he gets you on the ground, he's finishing. But you got a guy like Izzy, it's maybe too late for him to learn that now. But if I'm Izzy, I'm trying to consolidate the skills that I need that enable me to finish. So I'm probably focusing on one good choke or one good something that can help me finish once I get this guy on the ground, because that's what failed him in that first fight. It failed him. And now he's going to need it. But is it too late? Maybe.
So more grappling from Izzy.
Yeah, more grappling from Izzy.
Faster start from Alex. What else? What else are you expecting?
More grappling from Izzy, faster start from Alex. And I expect Izzy to fight a do or die style of fight here. I think that
he's going to pick up the pace as well.
Yeah, I really believe that he realizes he doesn't have much to lose. He's taking his fight probably way too soon. If I'm him, I would have went back and took a little bit more time to develop some more skills, but he's taking his fight way too soon. I believe that he's going to fight this fight with his heart more than anything else. And when you fight with your heart that way, you tend to be a little reckless and make mistakes. It can work in your favor because you're passionate and you could just outdog another guy. But I don't see him outdogging Alex. I think that he's going to fight with his heart and his passion, and that may get him in trouble in this fight.
I agree with you in terms of his motivation, because I think, in all the interviews I've listened to, I really get the sense, of course he wants the belt back, but I really get the sense that this is not about the belt. For him, because of the things we just talked about, him winning the vast majority of the rounds, the moments in the 3 times that these guys have been in a combative setting, I think he's living in this state of cognitive dissonance where what he knows to be true in his heart and in his mind is not playing out in reality. And that feeling of disconnect between what is true and what you're actually seeing in front of your face can honestly be a really mentally frustrating place to live. So I think for him, it's he just has to go prove it once. Point being, I don't think he's going to have to beat Alex 3 more times to feel, satisfied about it. I think this fight is about him answering the question that he feels like he already has the answer to, right? And knowing 100% whether or not he can beat this guy. And in his mind, 100% he can. But I think it's less about the belt for this.
Well, cognitive dissonance can be poison. And I think in this situation, I think it's poisonous. It could be poisonous. What I fought Kyle Uno twice. And both times I felt like I was the better fighter. He beat me both times. And the first time I was kicking his butt. He choked me out in the final round. The second time I lost a point and he ended up winning the decision. And I'm like, man, I'm better than this guy. But you know what? I don't want to fight him a third time because I don't want him to beat me 3 times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But for Izzy to go out there and get this fight so soon, for sure, there's something twisted in his mind where he feels like I gotta get it.
Yeah.
And to me, it's very Moby Dick-esque, where you're chasing
Look at
this.
You evoking literature in our fight preview, Dean.
You see what I'm saying?
Very sophisticated all of a sudden.
I'm a sharp dude, you know what I'm saying? Ahab. but it can get you in trouble. It could be poisonous. And I'm afraid for Izzy for that, because if he doesn't win, where does he go from here? This could be that thorn in his side. And where does he go from here? Does he go back to just beating everybody and not being champ? But for him, I'm sure he's thinking, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to win, I'm going to get the belt back, I'm going to, reign supreme. But if he doesn't, where does he go from here?
Yeah.
I'm scared for him for that.
I do think it does raise some really interesting questions about, okay, so if Izzy loses and Alex remains champion, there's a likelihood that, Alex is going to have to face a much more proficient grappler than Izzy in his next fight, likely Robert Whittaker. I wonder if Izzy thinks in his mind, okay, if that happens, I don't think Alex gets past Robert and I fight Robert again. And you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he thinks that someone else would with better grappling would have the ability to take Alex out. But I don't think Alex is going to stick around at 185. I really don't.
I don't think so either. I think he wants to go up now.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's just doing this to prove, because he's a G.
Mm-hmm.
He's a G, and he just wants to prove that he can beat Izzy again. I believe he's going to go up and try to challenge for the light heavyweight belt.
Yep.
But I think he's a G, and it's just like, you know what? You want some of this again, kid? You can have it. You want some? Come get it. Run up on me.
Run up on me. I'm anxious to know what weigh-in morning is going to be like, because they cut it very, very close last time. And man, you take one look at that guy. My husband didn't believe me when I said, like, no, you don't understand. Like, I know they're the same height, but he's so much bigger than Izzy. And he was all arguing with me. And then I showed him that picture of Alex Pereira standing next to Dominic Reyes. I was like, Dominic Reyes is a light heavyweight, and he looks like a welterweight, compared to Alex. It's unbelievable how big he is. So I'll be interested to see how he does making the weight.
Well, there's, and I don't want to put too much into the size difference, because I do believe that some of that could actually play into Izzy's favor.
The grappling,
like not only just that, but just if Izzy, and this is the problem with a lot of fighters, is that they always want to fight big. They always want to be the bully. If Izzy plays a game of cat and mouse and also grapples, he could wear Alex out.
Yep.
He can make Alex chase him and miss and just really play cat and just really fight a smaller fight. And that is a real thing. And it's a real thing that most people don't understand, because obviously we look at muscles and look at size and go, oh, the bigger guy. But if you fight and you embrace a smaller fight and you use that to your advantage, it could work. And it could absolutely work in this situation, because Alex is a terrible grappler. Mm-hmm. And if you wear him out and get him on the ground, he's done. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure but again, Izzy's going in with a motivation to prove something. So he's going to be fighting with his heart. I'm not sure he's going to be fighting with his head as much. So I don't think he's going to do it.
Well, regardless, it's going to be fascinating to see the strategies that these guys employ, the way that they approach it. When you say a small fight, I think I know what you mean. But describe to me what you mean when you say Izzy needs to fight a small fight.
Okay, so if you look at Demetrius Johnson, like his entire career, he was smaller than everybody else. And he embraced that. And the more he embraced it, the better he looked. If you even look at his last fight against Adriano Moraes, and he was just like stunting on him and just absolutely stunting. And because he embraced it. And when you embrace it, you don't try to go through the wall. You just go around it.
Yeah. I like that.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? You don't, yeah. So that's the
I'm
thing
probably
is
going to
it,
steal that for the weigh-in show, just FYI, guys.
you can,
Dean
you can
said it
steal it.
first. I'm just going to say
No,
it
you
second.
can take it. And that's the thing is that as fighters and as in the fight industry, we always look at it as if, oh, you have to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you fight intelligently, if you can't go through it, you just go around it.
Yeah.
And most fighters don't think that way, which is why they struggle with size.
Do you have a prediction for this fight or no?
I predict that Alex is going to win. Now, it's a hard prediction for me to make because, the law of probability says that Izzy should win. Like, it just says, like, man, you've lost to this guy 3 times already. Like, you're due to win. But I just think that Alex is going to win. I think that he's going to win. Then he's going to go up to light heavyweight, and he's just always going to be a nightmare for Izzy.
So what happens if he vacates the middleweight title? Does Izzy get it back? Or I guess there's an interim fight between Izzy and
I mean, if he, well, I mean, I kind of don't know what you do it. I mean, listen, let's just call it like it is. Like, without Izzy and Alex at the middleweight division, like the entire division is just trash. Like, let's call it the way it is. Like, I hate to say it that way, and I hate to say it that way but let's just, I mean, it is a trash division, and we've seen how trash it was when we saw Dricus du Plessis and Derek Brunson fight. And I'm thinking, like,
that was a highly technical fight.
Jesus, it was an absolute, it was abomination of a fight. But I do think that there's a lot of things that can happen in that division, and it should happen in that division, and hopefully it does. I'm not saying it's not an exciting division. I mean, it is an exciting division, but it's just a trash division. And we're lucky and we're blessed right now to have this rivalry between Alex and Izzy because it brings some excitement to it.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a fantastic fight, and I'm excited to watch it. You're going to be cage side as usual, I'm guessing?
I will be cage side, absolutely.
I mean, how could they go to Florida and not bring you in? That would be ridiculous.
I'm doing a lot there. I'm working on the desk. I'm working cage side. Yeah, I'm doing a lot this weekend. So I'm excited to be in Miami. And just again, another factor that I had my very first MMA fight in Miami. It wasn't even called MMA at the time. We called it shoot fighting at the time. It was in 1996 or 97. It was in Hialeah, Miami.
So not even regulated.
No, not even. It was in some bar, and they just threw a ring up, and we were punching and kicking and grappling, and just.
Did you win?
Yeah, I had a draw. My very first was a draw.
Well, that had to be irritating, but I'm sure it was a great fight.
It was, and it's funny because it was against a guy named Ilian Rodriguez, who actually works on the Florida Commission, and he'll be at the show. And we've known. Yeah, we've known each other our entire careers for almost 30 years now.
You got to post a pic with him. You got to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Well, Dean, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time as always. Fights headed to Miami this weekend. They're going to be fantastic. We will see you there. And guys, hit like, hit subscribe. We appreciate you always. And keep an eye out for the co-main event video as well.